What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord, Dr. Professor, Dark Joker, here with another edition of Traditional Fans with Opinions, where I'll give my reviews for whoever I watched, read, or played today. And who are Traditional Fans with Opinions? That is myself, and that is you, the viewers. With all that being said, on with the reviews. One Piece episode 1125. So in this one, Kizaru fights Sentomaru, who like has control over the pacifistas, and they show flashback to Sentomaru's childhood when he first meets Kizaru and Vegapunk, and and how the two got to know each other, and so Kizaru basically very easily beats Sentomaru. Then we see Luffy start to fight Kizaru, and Luffy's like, we're 100 times stronger than we were 2 years ago. Because it's been a while since it's about the archipelago arc, and yeah, basically this is the start of the big fight against Kizaru, which is gonna last for a while. Like Kizaru's gonna be there's gonna be a lot of the battles gonna involve him, and like it's gonna be interesting. And Rob Lucci attacks Stussy, and severely injures her, and Zoro starts fighting him. I do hope we see more of that fight than we did in the manga, but at least in later episodes. As far as the episode goes, I think this was a very good episode. Focus on Sentomaru Kizaru was done very well. I liked how they displayed, their backstories. And I think that it was a good fight. It was a pretty short fight, especially short for a One Piece fight. But I think that this was a very good episode, and that next week will be another good episode. News Exorcist Chapter 94. So in this one, basically like new Gakuro and Issue try to settle all the stuff with, the engagement between Gakuro and Issue. So basically to reveal the purpose behind it is to infiltrate, Issue's family, infiltrate that building, and so they can stop the awakening of the Hio. Because Reisei wants to awaken all of them in 2 days, and so basically Gakuro begs Suzaku, who's the head of that household, like permission to marry her daughter. And after some resistance, Suzaku's like fine, and then basically the entire family takes like a group bath, so Gakuro like bathes in like this communal bath with like all of Issue and all her relatives, which he's very like feels very awkward about because basically he's bathing with a bunch of women, and it just gets funny because they all look at him, and he doesn't. He gets very awkward about women, and it's like this is all being played for laughs. And basically, Gakuro's trying to make nice with Suzaku so that they can find Reisei and stop the awakening. And, I thought this was a very funny chapter, and it's basically we're getting towards the awakening. We're trying. Hopefully, Gakuro reaches Reisei soon so that we can see what happens with the awakening, what all the other Hio are like. And yeah, I think this was a good chapter. Elusive Samurai, chapter 199. So in this one, uh, Tokiyuki's army rendezvous with Usugi and Kira and and Tadayoshi basically in order to fight the Kono clan because Tadayoshi wants to kill the Konos. Like he thinks that the Konos corrupted Takaji. Basically like both like Ashikaga brothers are like shells of their former selves. Like they're falling apart. And so like we're seeing like how like the how war is affecting the Ashikagas and how like their battles will be affected by you know the their flaws and what's going on. So we have basically have some conflict. Tadayoshi still hates the Hojos. Does not want the Hojos to be free, and he doesn't want Takaji to be killed. He wants to kill the Konos because he believes that will help him make peace with his brother. Now that's not going to happen probably, and Tokiyuki feels bad for Tadayoshi, but it's like we're getting towards the next battle, and the big battle's now starting. Takachi has better numbers, and all of the allies are have assembled, and now we're getting towards the big battle. I don't know how close we are to the final confrontation between Takaji and Tokiyuki, but I think close. I think this is a good chapter. It's just showing how everyone is, post that really long time jump to where all the kids are adults now. And like, yeah, I think this was a good chapter. Kagurabachi Chapter 75. So in this one, Chihiro, um, Hirohiko, and Seichi Samura have activated their enchanted blades. Basically, big battle started. Samura's not happy about his daughter being at the battle scene, and he's not happy about the seal being undone. So he wants the seal redone, but of course they can't redo the seal while there's a fight going on. So Chihiro tells Samura to protect his daughter while he fights Hirohiko, and then basically Iori wants to like talk to Samura, but Samura does not want he doesn't want to talk to her. He basically wants to seal. He wants her memories gone, and like so basically big fight between Chiro and Hirohiko's about to start, and as far as it goes, like I don't know how the battle's gonna go, but it's gonna be pretty interesting. I think it's gonna be a really good fight, and yeah, I think the big battle's starting. And I think this was a very good chapter. Maybe we'll see more about like why Samura is so willing to go against like this. I mean, we know like he's pissed about some of the things that happened in the war, but we'll probably see like Samura potentially turn back to the good side and help Chihiro. I think that's a possibility for future chapters in this arc. Yeah, I think this is a very good chapter, and I look forward to next week's. Astro Royale, chapter 49. So in this chapter, with Tendo being a giant monster from absorbing like hatred and violence from like other people, Hibiru's idea is to use a daybreak or to absorb the hopes of the other Yatsurugis. So basically all his friends and family and like empower himself, which could potentially turn to a monster like Tendo. And so basically you know, basically it's just a power up chapter. Like it's just the Hebrew powering up. So how effective the attack is, we probably won't see like the full extent of it until next chapter. But basically, it's like all the power the Usarunis are being used by Hebrew to attack Tendo. And I don't know if the fight will end next week or a week after. But yeah, as far as chapter goes, I mean, not much happens, but it's a decent chapter. Like, I don't think you need an entire chapter for that, but I still think it was a decent chapter. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see how the fight ends or continues next week. Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, Chapter 40. So in this one, there are currently three demon lords left besides the Great Demon Lord. So you have the second Demon Lord, Ukurojima, who's being fought by Sakaki, and that one's basically off panel right now. And so then you have the first Demon Lord, Tanjichi, which we see the beginning of the fight between him and Hijiri, who went there to save Bako, Jogasaki, who were and Mataki, who were all like being being attacked by Tanjichi. And then now we have the you know third demon lord, Kurosata, who's the brother of another demon lord who was defeated by Kiyoshi. And so we see Kiyoshi and Hitsugi fight him. And then, basically Hitsugi tells Kiyoshi to go fight, you know, at Asuda Roth, the great demon lord, while he deals with, Sada. And he doesn't know if he actually has Hitsugi doesn't think he necessarily has a chance to win because, there's a big parallel difference, but he's like, I'll just go beyond my limits. You know, classic anime talk. And so, we'll probably see, these three fights between the other three Demon Lords end pretty soon before we get to the big fight against Asuda Roth. And yeah, as far as chapter goes, I think this was a good chapter. It's going over, across the battlefield. And I think we're going to see some really good fights pretty soon. And yeah, I like this chapter. Next week's should be pretty good as well. Ichi the Witch, Chapter 30. So in this one, we have Ichi, basically going around yelling. Bakugami's a big dum-dum, he sucks. Basically, we have he and Gokuraku trying, basically just annoying Bakugami with some of the noise outside his tent. And Bakugami inside tent is having a magic conversation with the world hater Magic, who he's like obsessed with. And basically Descaras fights him. And then we see basically Bakugami give the sadness that he took from someone else back to one of the people he took it from, and causes that guy to break down because he had not had any sadness at all. Then once he receives it all back, all those emotions come flooding back, and like he has like a mental breakdown. And basically like Gokuraku's really pissed off. And then like basically like Bakugami then decides to do this big spell to return the sadness to like everyone he took it from on the day of the ceremony to cause like this mass panic that would probably cause like, a lot of deaths and probably like he's basically trying to make everyone commit suicide. Like he just wants to kill all the humans. Like it's dark what he's doing. And like it's I will say from a story perspective, it's nice seeing the villain be a real villain, not some sympathetic crap. No, just straight up villainy. So I like this chapter. I think Bakugami is an interesting villain, and interesting how the basically his cult will react to it, to what he's planning on doing. And how Gokuraku will deal with it. Will he actually claim Bakugami's powers? Like, will Cam Gokuraku actually do that? And if he does gain his power, how will Gokuraku go about actually doing that? Like using his powers? Like it's gonna be interesting. Like how they deal with like the sadness. Like how are they gonna handle giving sad? Like if they once they defeat Bakugami, how are they gonna handle giving like sadness, like those emotions back to the people and in a way that doesn't cause them to like die. Like that's gonna be interesting. I think this is a good chapter. I like the villain, and I'm looking forward to seeing next week's fight between Bakugami and Gokuraku. Embers Chapter 11. So in this one, we have Haitani trying to figure out how to beat Kaneda and like steal the ball from him because Kaneda can jump higher than anyone. And basically Haitani he wants to since he's told like his defense abilities is how he's the core of the offense and he wants to like take the ball so that he can help his team score goals. And so how he figures it out is since Kaneda can like he can just jump straight up. I really like Haitani decides in order to get jump higher, he needs a running start, so he does a running start and then he's able to get enough momentum to jump higher and get the ball to his teammates, like and basically help them score. And basically Janetta's really worried, and then the teacher who inspired Haitani to get into soccer, like watches the game and seems very happy with Haitani enjoying soccer. And so, it's nice to see him be at the game. And I see Haitani starting to really enjoy soccer. And I think this was a good chapter. And I'm looking forward to see how this game, like this match between the two teams, continues. Like, will Haitani's team get the win, and how will that affect the rest of their season? Like, I think this could be a really good match. Start Beethoven Chapter 10. So in this one, Yaso and Aigal are continuing their conversation where Aigal's pissed at Yaso for quitting the piano since her grandfather was his mentor. So Aigal has Yaso play uh the Moonlight Sonata, which is a piece by Beethoven, which is the piece that Yaso played at the competition right before he quit playing piano for a period of time. And he plays it and Hoing, at the request of Aigal, gives her opinion of Yaso's playing. And she says basically that he played it well. And he basically says his playing lacks the impact it had during his first tenure as a piano player. Basically that he's not living up to his potential. And Aigal says if she was the judge of the transfer exam, she would never allow them to pass. Now, how much of that is due to her bias against him? How much of that is due to his actual playing? Who knows? That's a lot of that could be due to her bias against him. But then like Yasuo returns, trying to figure out how he can play to his full potential. And then basically Beethoven recommends that they go for a walk. And that's the end of the chapter. So we don't see those two people who are searching for Beethoven. They don't appear. And so as far as chapter goes, it's gonna be interesting how Igal and Yasuo continue to interact, and how Beethoven inspire Yasuo to slay to his full potential. And I think this was a good chapter. I you know it's not as focused on Beethoven himself, but it's more focused on the school stuff. But I think that this was an interesting chapter, and how Igal continues to react with Yasuo, I think could be very interesting for the rest of the series. So yeah, I think this was a quality chapter. Spy Family, chapter 114.1. So in this one, the hospital director who's into Nightfall wants to visit Nightfall's apartment since she's sick, and basically he wants to try to flirt with her, and so he invites Twilight to go with him since you know he thinks he will have a better chance of actually being able to get through the door if Twilight's with him. And Twilight he's like whatever, and he has some intel he has to give Nightfall anyway. So he basically sends like a secret message saying that yeah, I'll leave the intel somewhere else where you can get it. And Nightfall, who hears Lloyd coming, is like, oh frick. So she tries to prepare herself. She puts a mask on and she tries to do her work, but basically tells her to relax, just stay home, take care of yourself, don't push it, because he had seen his friends some of the people he's met as spies, so his comrades, he's seen some of them die from not taking care of themselves, so he wants Nightfall to take care of herself. And so basically, Nightfall goes back to bed, and Twilight and the hospital director they leave, and that's it. And, this was a funny little side chapter. You know, as far as I mean, it probably doesn't have too much effect on the overall story. It's just a side chapter, but it's still a decent chapter. It's just Nightfall, being Nightfall basically, and, and Twilight being Twilight. That's all it is, and it's pretty funny. It's nice to have some of these chapters, just these little side chapters are yeah, whatever. It's just the characters being the characters, nothing big going on. No big spy thing, no big school thing, no big family thing. It's just a simple side story, and it's fine to have. I think this was a good chapter. As far as the arc goes, I think there's still a lot set up right now for the future big arc. I think we're still in a lot of setup, so it makes sense to have some side chapters right now. So yeah, I think this was a good chapter. Hopefully we see more about what's gonna happen with the Desmonds and stuff next week. MobLand episodes 1 through 3. Yeah, so MobLand, I've forgotten to review episodes 1 and 2, so I'm gonna do them right now, along with episode 3. So basically, what happens is you have Harry, who's a fixer for the Harrigan crime family. He meets with Mamet and the Casas. These are two gangs, and he basically like organizes peace between them. But the head of the Harrigan family, Conrad, orders Harry to kill both Mamet and the Costas when negotiations fail. And so then Conrad's grandson, Eddie, you know, he basically, hangs out with Tommy Stevenson, who's the son of Conrad's wife rival, Richie Stevenson. Basically, they go to a pub, then they fight with some other guy, and Eddie stabs the dude. And Harry meets with Eddie to talk about the stabbing, and basically Harry's able to get the CCTV footage erased. And then, he makes the stabbing victim withhold the information from the cops. And basically, Kevin, who's Eddie's father, Conrad's son, basically calls Harry and mentions that Richie is been calling him like a lot. And Harry meets with these characters named Zosia and Kiko to kill Richie. And Richie tells Harry to find his son or else. And Harry basically calls off the hit on Richie. Then Conrad, meets with his stepdaughter Serafina, his his son Brendan, Archie, you know, who's Conrad's lawyer, and this guy named Kevin, who to meet with them. And Conrad decides he wants to get involved with the fentanyl trade. Archie is not happy with that idea. He says no, and basically, Maeve, like, calls Archie and traitor, and then Conrad pulls a gun out and shoots Archie. And so Harry arrives and basically helps deal with the aftermath. He helps, clean up the crime scene and get rid of Archie's body. And Maeve, like, basically, Maeve has no problem with the fentanyl trade. Like, she, as Conrad's wife, is very much okay with that. And Harry, while he's dealing with some cleanup, remembers when he had to, help help Kevin with his when his face got bloody, and then basically the cops raid Harry's house and they arrest Harry. And basically, this detective named Fisk asks Harry about the disappearance of Archie, but the Harrigan family's lawyer O'Hara bails him out. And Richie meets with Kevin. He asks about his son, Tommy, and he wants to meet with Eddie. So basically, Kevin, he basically has Eddie move to the Harrigan mansion. Basically, Richie tries to capture Eddie, but you know it fails. Basically, and then Conrad wants Harry to find proof about Archie potentially having betrayed them. And then Kevin's wife, Bella, she deals with some stuff involving her father, who's connected to the government, and then this guy named Antoine. So Harry meets Richie. Richie still wants to talk to Eddie, and he plans to use Harry's daughter Gina as that, as you know basically an ultimatum where basically he wants to pretend he's using Gina as like a hostage type thing. And Harry's wife considers divorcing him due to all the problems that's going on. And Maeve then gives Eddie some cocaine. And Harry tries to find Tommy. He meets with some of Eddie's friends, and then they're getting into a fight with the bouncers. He convinces the owner to, well, very forcefully convinces the owner to tell him where Tommy's at, and the club owners show him a crate where he sees Tommy's dismembered body. So Tommy's dead. So the next episode's dealing with the fallout of that, of all that. Like Harry moves his wife and daughter out. Like he's trying to get them into hiding, and like basically, yeah, and basically, Conrad's not happy with Eddie for basically starting the war potential with Richie, and yeah, yeah, and basically Conrad's like, you freaking idiot. Yeah, and basically, like, and he wants Harry's trying to like clean it up, so he's trying to get this guy named Valley John to, confess to killing, Tommy in order to get the Stevensons off of the Harrigans' backs. You know, and basically like Kevin is, having to deal with the fact that, Eddie, you know, freaking killed Tommy. And basically, Maeve's trying to do all her stuff, like she cares for Eddie. She basically enables him. And everyone everyone hates him because he's a freaking idiot. And like everyone wants Eddie to be dealt with. Like basically like what her motives are regarding why she doesn't want to help Eddie, fix himself, help him get some help and come clean. We don't know. And basically like things are heating up. And then like basically like what is Maeve trying is Maeve trying to take over for Conrad, and basically there's a unknown person who's working within the Harrigan family who's working against the family, and we don't know who it is, if it's Maeve, if it's Serafina, Brendan, Kevin, Harry, we don't know. Like we don't know. There's a lot of mysteries. I think this show is pretty good. It's a good mobster show. And the like with all mobster shows, everything goes to crap at some point, and everything has gone to crap. And so yeah, I've liked these 3 episodes. I felt they're very good, and I look forward to the rest of the season. Logo Loser Ranger Season 2, Episode 1. So, in this episode, everyone's dealing with the aftermath of the death of Dragon Keeper Blue. So, like the Dragon Keepers, their victory formation is messed up, kind of like how the Ginyu Force got pissed off when they were missing a member and their victory pose sucked. So basically, you have all this foot soldier G celebrating, the death of one of the dragon keepers, and he talks to himself saying that, you know, if he's gonna kill dragon keepers, he needs to kill the boss monsters too, because they're just gonna destroy everything. So he wants to destroy Petrola and any other monster that's out there, as well as the dragon keepers. And so Foot Soldier D is recruited into Green Squadron. He thought he was going to be in red, but he ends up in green, which Green Squadron has the secret, you know, purpose of hunting other boss monsters. So basically, there's a lot about the defeat of the boss monsters that was hidden from the public, which is not surprising. And basically, Foot Soldier G is going to be part of the squadron that actually is going to track them. So how also with Patrola, the stuff with all the other characters, any other boss monster, we're gonna see a lot of that. And there's all these disappearances that probably are involved that are heavily implied to be involved caused by a boss monster, whichever one it is, who knows. But yeah, this was a very good episode. It's nice to see this show back. It's basically the boys' version of Power Rangers. And yeah, I really like this episode. This is a good show. And yes, I'm looking forward to see what the rest of the season holds. The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1. So yeah, this is the first episode that's adapting the second Last of Us game. And then this one starts off, you have, Abby and her group, and, you know, arriving at the hospital, they bury all the dead doctors, which includes Abby's father. Basically, Abby says when they find Joel, they're going to kill him slowly. I mean, I guess a golf club, you take multiple hits to kill a guy. So I guess that's considered pretty slowly. And you have Abby, who looks more like Ellie from the games than, well, Ellie in the show does. And so then you have a 5-year time jump where you have Ellie and Joel, their relationship's strained. You know, you know, part of it, like everyone believes it's just due to Ellie being 19 and acting out as a lot of 19-year-olds do. Well, we know that that's not the case because of what happened at the hospital. And basically, Ellie, bonds with this character named Dina, who basically acts as her love interest this in in this season, I guess. They show basically Ellie go on like a recon mission and break the rules, but sees like this is like a infected that acts smart, like that actually knows how to hide and stuff. So you have like the leadership of like commune being worried about potentially like what could happen if you have a bunch of smart infected. And like Ellie showing complete disregard for authority. Like just I mean, I've played the first game. I have not played the second game because of all the rumor, all this. When I saw that the leaks were true, I didn't play the second game. So I haven't played. The only footage I've seen comes from the trailers from before the game released. So I don't know how bad Ellie's authority problem actually was in the game. if it's at the level it is in the show, because in the show, at least in the first season, if you compare the original game to season 1 of the TV show, Ellie's authority problems are just made so much worse. They just make Ellie annoying, and they keep her annoying in this one. It's like you're basically a soldier. You get like there is a hierarchy. There is a pecking order in chain. There is a chain of command. That is how soldiers operate. You have to operate within the chain command. Ellie, some reason, does not understand that for whatever reason. I don't know, but basically, basically, there's like some like New Year's dance or something. Ellie and Dina dance, and guess they, and this was in the trail, one of the trailers for the game, where they start making out, and then and I don't know if this is from the game. I don't think it's from the game, but y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. But some guy appears and basically like it says, "Hey, don't do that in church. This is a family event." I don't know if that's in the game. Like I said, I haven't played the game. I've only seen the trailers and know about the plot leaks. So yeah, I don't know if that guy saying something was actually in the game or not. It could just be something they added in. I could just be wrong, but as far as episode goes, I did not like this episode. Ellie's just so freaking annoying. Like, and I see no reason to care about Abby. Joel is like, that therapist is like, what did you do to her? He's like, I saved her. And there's a way in which something like that could work. But the way they execute like the therapy is like okay, you don't need this therapy scene. Like, I mean, really, everyone in that freaking world needs therapy. They're in a post-apocalyptic world. Everyone needs some form of therapy. And Joel's like, "Aren't you supposed to like affirm me and stuff like that?" And the therapist is like, "Yeah, but I'm not gonna do it anymore." I'm like, well, so by not affirming his problems, you're actually gonna act like a therapist now? So I mean, well, I'm not gonna get into my issues with therapy, like my criticisms about about therapists, but basically, I thought that scene was stupid. I thought this entire episode was stupid. I mean, this this is adapting the game that was not well liked, and the reception of that game will really hurt this season's ratings. I mean, it will. The only people who are really going to be watching this are going to be normies and people reviewing it. Like hardcore Last of Us fans, specifically of the original game, a lot of them are not going to be watching this unless they're reviewing it. And yeah, I didn't like this episode. I thought it sucked. I didn't like the first season. I didn't like how they removed all the gameplay like segments. They didn't try to film some action scenes to simulate the gameplay, and I didn't like this episode. So yeah, this is not a good show. And that's it. Did y'all like the stuff I reviewed? And if you have your own opinions about all that, you put all that in the comments. Thank you for watching, and like, subscribe, and all that. And look forward to the next video.